All right, thanks for coming back. This is going to be day 2 of these. So we are going to talk about another kind of introduction activity or graphic organizer that we're going to frequently use in class. So having listened to my video from yesterday, I will commit to trying to make them a little bit shorter and also trying to breathe into the microphone a little bit less, but we'll see how that goes. So today we're going to talk about another sort of graphic organizer that we're going to frequently use. So the last one, the one we used yesterday, it was called a 4-level analysis. So that was used oftentimes to look for patterns on maps and to talk about the why of particular patterns that you see with data, or with yesterday, like we saw the kind of the lights. Today we're going to talk about a graphic organizer that we use frequently with things like videos and readings. And we're going to use it to specifically talk about the different impacts that we're watching or reading about on a geographic area. So it's called SPEED, and it stands for Social, Political, Economic, Environmental, and Demographic. So I would at least write down those categories, and I'm going to explain a little bit about each one so you can sort of write it down as we're going. All right, so the first one is social. So as we're watching a video or reading an article, I want you to look for the very social aspects of the video. So what do you see in the video or in the article that relates to the culture of a given place? It's religion, it's religious beliefs, the music, the food, the language, the customs or values. So what relates to the social systems of the people that we're talking about? That could also be things like gender roles, or kind of the family roles that we see. It could also have to do with what you see in terms of the built environment. So what does the architecture look like? What do religious sites look like? That can tell you a lot about a specific place. And also migration. So we'll talk about migration. But obviously migration has a lot of economic and political aspects to it as well. So kind of a question of what you see that relates to the social systems is the first one. The second bullet point is the P, right? Political. So what effect do government policies have on what you're watching or looking at? That might be specific laws or regulations within a country. It might be relations with other countries that it borders. It might have to do with the specific level of political rights or freedoms that people have, or the role that their government plays or their leaders play. It might have to do with specific wars or conflicts within a country or with neighboring countries. All of those things have to do with political systems, right? And we might watch a video or read an article where you're looking at kind of some of those aspects. So that is the P. The next one is economic, our first E, economic. So what type of work do most people do in the country that you're studying? Are they mostly engaged in agriculture? Are they mostly engaged in industry or industrial jobs? Or are they mostly engaged in services? How do people work? Where do people work? What are the major things that they are producing? What do the levels of development look like in a country? Is it a more developed country? Is it a less developed country? Is it a developing country? Or what we call a newly industrialized country? So what are you seeing as it relates to economic systems? The next one is environmental. So how are natural resources being used? What do you see in terms of specific human environmental interaction? So how do people interact with the environment? How do they use the land? How do they modify the land? How do they access natural resources or clean water? What effect do people have on the environment? So that might be pollution. It might also relate to the climate change and the effect that climate change has on the environment. So what things related to the environment do we see? And the last one is demographic. So demographic, we're not going to pay as much attention to in the first unit because unit 2 is on population, and that's all demography. So you'll learn about all of these things real in depth. But basically demography has to do with the study of kind of people as in terms of the study of population, right? So within population, we look at all sorts of statistics, and oftentimes we look at things like the age structure, population growth, gender balance, and then whether or not a population is growing or declining, and sort of the impact on the society, right? So there's all sorts of tie-ins with economics and political and social as well in that too. So all of these things are related, and you'll see that with geography where everything is related to everything else, and that's one of the beauties of geography. All right. So what I'm going to have you do is the activity you're going to do is going to be a video about vanilla cultivation in Madagascar. So I tried to pick a video where you could see a lot of different things going on in all these categories, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to choose 3 of the 5 categories: social, political, economic, environmental, or demographic. And I want you to write down impacts that you see from the video. Okay. So write down a political impact, and an economic impact, an environmental impact, social or demographic. And then I want you to choose the one that you are willing to talk about the most, or would be able to talk about the most, and write it down on your whiteboard and have that ready to go for in class when I see you in a few minutes. All right. All right. I'll see you soon. Bye.